Hey, and welcome once again to Ancient Ways for Modern Days. My name is Mike Freeman. So excited to have you here today as we are in Colossians chapter 3. Now, in this chapter, what we have is we have the application starting to roll in based upon the gospel principles that we've been seeing and that we've been learning. And so the application, it begins with this idea of taking off the sinful lifestyle, the lifestyle that was in rebellion to Christ, and putting on the Christ-like lifestyle, the external actions that portray the internal change that exists within the believer in Jesus Christ. Simply put, it's a call to live like Christ. Now, there are multiple different angles we can look at in many verses that we can pull out this exhortation from. But I want us to look today at a passage that's not necessarily aimed at our character, but it's aimed at the overflow of our character by way of action. Now, this is a text that is largely, it's actually describing how a slave is to interact with their master. Now, we live in a world where slavery is not the thing that it once was, although the reality is there are many who are illegally enslaved in our world today. That's not what this is necessarily talking about. This is talking about a kind of like an economic legal agreement between master and slave. What we have today in application would be the arrangement between an employer and an employee. Now, if you're an employee, you're not necessarily a slave to your employer, but they are your authority. You do answer to them. You do follow their lead. And by the same standard, if you're an employer, you're not the master of your employees. They're not your slaves. And so today's passage, it really is speaking to how a slave should think about their lifestyle, their obedience to their master. Now, for us today, I want us to think about our employment, the way we live in light of how we make our living, but also I want us to think about everything we do. The reality is, if you are a teenager in your home, you owe some fidelity, some allegiance to following and obeying your parents within the church. If you serve within your church, you serve in a way that is meant to honor Christ, and it follows the leadership within your church. And so with that said, let's go ahead and let's look at this text. Here's what we find. Verses 23 and 24 of chapter 3. It says, "Whatever you do, work heartily, as for the Lord, and not for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the inheritance as your reward. You are serving the Lord Christ." Now, I want us to just focus on this for a minute, because this is what it says. It says when you go to work, when you go and clock in, when you go to your job, for maybe you don't clock in, maybe you're salaried, right? But whatever you do, when you go and do the dishes at your household, when you serve in the youth ministry or the children's ministry or the nursery, or when you clean up in your church, when you care for your household, whatever you do, you work heartily. Look, as for the Lord and not for men. You realize when you go to work, the things that you do, your boss might tell you to do them, but you actually do them for the Lord. Children, teenagers, do you realize when you do your chores around the house, you do them for your parents? Your parents might actually tell you to do them, but ultimately you are serving the Lord Christ. The end of verse 24 says, you are serving the Lord Christ. So everything we do, regardless of whether it's the most enjoyable task or the most deplorable task, everything we do, we serve, we do it as if to the Lord. This means when you're, I'm a baseball coach, when you're out on the baseball field, when you're playing as if unto the Lord. See, every action, every effort, everything we pour ourselves into, we are doing it ultimately in service to Christ. This is why we work with a good attitude, not a bad attitude. This is why we're eager to embrace responsibility, not always being passive and not always pushing responsibility away. This is because everything we do for the Lord. See, if you were to look at a healthy church, you would find a church where the members, they do as much as they can eagerly, not because they're serving each other, although they are, not because they're following the directions the leader set, but they are. They're doing it because they serve the Lord. You want to see a healthy household, a healthy family. If you were to peer into a family, you would see the members, not perfectly, but the mother and the father, the children. You would see them serving each other, doing their chores, doing their responsibilities, and doing them as if unto the Lord. See, the ancient way for our modern day is one of the most practical, ideas that you can ever hold on to. It's recognizing everything we do to serve Christ. So here's how I want you to kind of evaluate yourself. Look at your attitude. Look at your actions. Look at the way you interact with other people. Are you doing everything in a way that pleases Christ because you're doing it unto the Lord, or are you doing it for others? Are you a people pleaser? Are you a self pleaser? Are you looking out for what makes you happy? Everything we do unto the Lord. This is our ancient way for our modern day.